Good day, reasonable people of YouTube. So what do mirrorless cameras, Colin Kaepernick, and Eminem's new album Kamikaze all have in common? Stay tuned to figure that out. Roll brand new title sequence. I'm not pointing to anybody, this is a one-man show, but you know. So, leave a comment down in the description if you like the title sequence. Should I keep it? Should I scrap it? It's up to you. If I don't get any comments, though, I'm keeping it. Welcome back to the show, 3 C's of Me, where we have complicated conversations about complex topics that don't end in killing people. Hopefully. So if you follow photography or hip-hop or politics at all, you know that right now the whole world is in a frenzy over different things. So Nikon and Canon have entered the mirrorless market. If you don't know anything about that, just Google it. It's huge. People have been going on and on about this, myself included. Click on the title card if you want to check out my video, my thoughts on this. Also, Eminem released a surprise album. Who does that? That's cool. It's awesome. It's fire. Better than Revival. Go listen to it. But there's been some drama surrounding that. And he has come back hard. And it's crazy. He's calling out all these mumble rappers and he's taking shots at people. Anyone he doesn't like or anyone who's ever said anything bad about him. Pretty much. And then we have Colin Kaepernick, who is now the face of Nike. New campaign? What? Why? I guess that's strange. I guess their new slogan is stand up for something, even if it costs you everything. Just do it. The memes that this whole thing has inspired are on point. I love them. These are the best memes of the year so far, in my opinion. So what does all this have in common? We like to fight over this kind of stuff. That's what they all have in common. So the real topic today is, why do we fight? Now, if you came here to talk about camera specs or get into lyrical breakdowns or anything like their political discourse, that's not really what this channel is about. This channel is about philosophy and intellect and etc. So if you're into that kind of stuff, stick around. So why do we fight? Why do we fight over who has the best camera gear? Why do we fight over who's the best rapper? Why do we fight over politics and an athlete an athlete protesting against is protesting? We'll just leave it at that. How about that? Why do we fight at all? Well, I think that we like to fight because we like to be right. I think we fight because we feel like we need to be on top. We need to be correct. We need to be safe. And some people just like to fight. Biologically, we had to fight to get to where we are. We have to fight even to this day to make money, to get to the top, to make things work. If you don't have to fight, then you're generally looked at as like elitist, almost, or like you got a silver spoon in your mouth, or something to that degree. So we value those that can fight, except for when they do fight, and then now we think that violence is not the answer. That's interesting. Why do we value people that can fight, but we don't actually want people to fight? Like, if a kid hits a bully in school, it's the kid's fault and he gets in trouble because he stood up for himself, because violence isn't the answer? Well, this is a weird double standard that we have. Now, online, people will fight all the time about all these silly things, like mirrorless cameras and who's the best. You use the wrong camera, and Canon is so much better, and Sony's so much better, and Fujifilm and Panasonic and Olympus and all these other guys are so much better than LA. Your camera's not as good as my camera. MGK, Machine Gun Kelly, releases an entire diss track aimed straight at Eminem. Wow. A lot of people are like, Machine Gun Kelly, nobody even knew who you were, and now you just signed your death warrant for your own career. And then everybody responds with like, Machine Gun Kelly is awesome. He bodied Eminem. He's like, I don't know. People get online and they say all this stuff and they fight about it. Why? Why does it matter? Why do we have this desire or this drive to go correct somebody when they don't share our opinion? Why? Why do we do that? And as I mentioned before, we want to be right. We don't want to be uncomfortable. The irony is, I think we fight because we want to be at peace. That seems a little counterproductive. That seems a little backwards, doesn't it? Shouldn't we do things peacefully so we don't have to fight? But yet, why are we so enamored with fighting and being right, being the strongest, being the best, being on top, having the best gear, being the best rapper, having the right political party, having better values and morals? Like, hold on. You're going to boycott Nike because they chose to make an athlete who didn't stand for the national anthem as a protest their spokesperson for their ad campaign or whatever? But don't you realize all the other things that company has done? I mean, do you not know about their working conditions? So you're going to get upset about this like marketing thing, but you don't really care about the lives of the individuals in like Honduras or whatever that are working in sweatshops. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. Why are we fighting about this? Then again, why is Colin Kaepernick fighting about anything? Is he fighting something? Is he really trying to fight oppression? Now, I get it. I respect his decision to kneel during the national anthem as a sign of protest. Fine. But is that the best way to fight oppression? Getting back to the original point as to why is it that we feel the need to correct people or argue our point to be taken seriously, to be right? What is it? Is it all of these things and more? Like I've already said, I do think that the overall premise, the overall basis for why we fight is, generally speaking, something to do with wanting to just be in our little area where we live, in our environment, be at peace, go about our normal lives, and not have to worry about somebody threatening our way of life or the way we think or some sort of tradition or some sort of belief, etc., etc. When we feel threatened in our beliefs or thoughts or practices or habits or anything like that, then we want to fight about it. And that's an interesting concept. Why is our first reaction to be like, I'm not wrong, you're wrong? Why do we do that? Now, let's make a distinction between fighting and arguing. You can have an argument, and it's not necessarily fighting. Arguing does not necessarily mean fighting. So my wife and I argue frequently. We have a difference of opinion. We bring up one side. The other person brings up their side. We talk about it. We discuss it. We come to some sort of agreement on it of some sort. We don't fight, though. We don't play the game of like, bringing up past mistakes or anything like that. We're not trying to best each other or be the winner or be the best or be some sort of one is superior than the other in the relationship, because that's not how partnerships should work. So why do people online or otherwise feel the need to elevate themselves or elevate their opinions over someone else's? Why do we fight and argue even when we have no evidence to back up our claims? Even when what we're arguing is something completely subjective that can't even be objectively quantified or measured or anything like that. Like, who does the best this thing or the other? Like, why are we arguing about who protests the best? Shouldn't any peaceful protest be taken into consideration as better than a violent protest? That is to say, unless you would take a violent protest more seriously. Which I don't think so. I don't think people who are violently protesting are seen in any better of a light than the people peacefully protesting. Or are you just mad that people are protesting at all because we live in America and they shouldn't be protesting? A huge portion of being in America means that we have the right to protest, to petition the government for grievances against the people. We don't, like other countries, don't have that right. We have free speech, freedom of religion, the freedom to protest. People, it's okay to protest. And just because you're protesting or someone is protesting doesn't mean that they're immediately somehow wrong or less than or anything like that. People have a right to protest. And a peaceful protest, arguably, is better than a violent one because people aren't dying during a peaceful protest. We don't have to fight about all of these things. Okay? Now, I say that, and yet I still think we're going to. We're not ever going to stop fighting each other. Oh, so the question is, the philosophical underpinning to all of this is, why do we fight? And I think that it is, yes, that we want to be at peace. We do not want our thoughts and beliefs and traditions challenged. So when that happens, when we are challenged, we want to make sure that we are correct and we can justify staying where we are, so we fight to stay where we are in our beliefs. And ironically enough, that belief can be that we don't need to stay where we are. The belief can be that we need to move forward. The belief can be that we need to change. You fight to keep your belief, to stay where you are in your belief. Now, what if we didn't fight about it? Would anything change? And that question has kind of got me. I used to think when I was younger that we could just all talk about things, come to an agreement, come to a compromise, and then we could just move on and be happy about things, be peaceful about things, and we wouldn't have to fight people over it. We wouldn't have to go to wars. We wouldn't have to set cars on fire and all this kind of stuff. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like we can't help but fight. Like being human necessitates fighting. We have to fight to survive. We have to fight to be heard. We have to fight to be appreciated. We have to fight to find our place in the world. We have to fight to get a good career, to get out of college, to go to college, to get a good career, to make the most money, to get that promotion. We've got to be top of the line. We've got to be an entrepreneur, you've got to work against the entire system working against you. It's in our blood. It's in our genetics. So we have to fight to get to where we want to go. Because the world is hard, the world is heartless, the world is cruel, and nobody is going to just hand you what you want. And if they do just hand you what you want and need, you have no appreciation for it because you didn't put any effort into getting the thing that you were just given. There's this association of value that comes when you put in a lot of work to get a thing. I think objects actually have a better representation of this. If somebody gives you a pair of shoes and they say like, oh, I was just going to get rid of these. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And they could be a $200 pair of shoes, but because somebody was just going to give them away and they just gave it to you, you don't really care about it that much. If you bought that $200 pair of shoes, if you spent $200 on it, you would care about it significantly more than someone who just gave you a pair of used $200 shoes, even if they're worth the same thing still. We have this value bias about things. Like, we don't really value things for what they are valued at. We value them based on how much effort it took us or how much it cost us to get to this or get it or gain it or have it. When we fight for something that we perceive has significant value. But we don't fight for things that we don't think are valuable. We don't fight over things that we don't think have meaning. Now, whether they objectively have meaning or not, that isn't irrelevant. It's the things that we perceive that have meaning. So we fight for these things we perceive mean something because we sacrificed We invested thought, time, energy, money into getting to where we are, or having this thing, accomplishing this task, buying this object, solidifying this worldview or political ideology. If we put effort into it, we will fight to keep it. And if we don't, then we feel guilty almost sometimes. Like, if we don't fight for the things that we love, then we aren't seen as very good caretakers of that. We have this weird set of beliefs, I think, as a culture about violence. Like, violence is like never the answer, but if you don't fight for what you believe in, then you're lacking something. So which one is it? What is it that we really want? Do we want to be fierce warriors that stand up for oppression and make everything equal for everyone? Or is violence never the answer? So we never fight about anything. Now, along this ideology of like making everything easier for everyone, eliminating oppression, people of color, minorities, etc., etc., do you really want to live in a place where you don't have to work to achieve the things that you want? Because once you get the things that you want, we already talked about this, if you put no effort into getting it, you won't appreciate it. So you can work as hard as you want for all of your life. You can make it the easiest it has ever been for anybody in this country, and your children will have no respect for the amount of work that you put into that. Wait a minute. Isn't that what we got today? Don't we have people from the Depression era that worked their fingers to the bone and sacrificed everything so that we could live in the country where we live in today? I'm not saying America's perfect by any means, but we have it so much easier than any other generation on this planet has ever had it, because we live in America, because people in our pasts have worked and sacrificed everything to give us what we have now. And we want to make it even easier, but we don't even appreciate the people that worked in our past. We don't appreciate the people from the Depression. Think about, but if younger rappers today go after the older rappers of yesterday, they disrespect the people that built this. The guy that gave legitimacy to a white person rapping, you're going to go after him and call him old and irrelevant and diss him nonstop for 3 or 4 minutes? So disrespectful. You have no idea how much time and energy and effort he put into it. Maybe you do a little bit, but my point is, if we attack the people in the past for not doing enough, even though they gave everything so that we can live in this lap of luxury, and if you are even, and everybody in America is in some sense rich compared to the rest of the world, maybe fighting isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe the reason we fight isn't always clear to us. Maybe fighting isn't always bad, but maybe the things that we're fighting over are not objectively the most valuable things we should be fighting over. Maybe we should pick our fights more carefully. Maybe we need to pick our battles with a little bit more wisdom. So what types of things should we be fighting for? Should we be fighting about who has the best camera gear? Should we be fighting about who is the best rapper of all time? Should we be fighting about who Nike decides to make their political ad sponsor, campaign spokesperson, whoever, whatever that is? Should we be fighting about those things? What should we be fighting about? Maybe we should be fighting about more important things, not even political things. Maybe we should go be voicing our opinions about how much money is not being spent on education. Maybe we need to reform the education system. Maybe we should take a look at families and how fatherless families are a big problem. Or that absent parents are a big problem. Maybe we need to rethink these things that we get all up in arms about and actually fight about things that are a problem. Things that are tearing apart our society. The fact that there's like no sexual morality except for the magic word consent. Now, never mind the fact that you weren't married, or you're not even dating, or there's no protection, or you're in a relationship, or whatever. None of that matters. As long as two people consent, that is the only moral grounds you have for saying anything else sexual is wrong. You don't think that's a problem? Don't you think we need a little more safeguards when it comes to sexuality? Or how about the fact that talking about emotions as a man is like, makes you weak? Don't you think that's something we should be fighting over? Don't you think that like mental health should be something we should be standing up for? Don't you think we should be talking about emotions more? We should be validating the emotions of people better. We should stop calling men weak. for being emotional. Now, I'm not talking about like way overboard. I'm talking about looking at what your emotions are, validating them, talking about them, moving on and getting over them instead of bottling them up, never talking about them, shutting down, being emotionally immature, going and doing drugs and alcohol to like cope with it, ignoring your family, walking out on them completely, or whatever the situation is, because you can't sit down and talk about what you feel. So don't you think we should be fighting about that kind of stuff? We should be talking about those types of things. We should fight for a society that values the opinions of men, no matter their race or their socioeconomic status or whatever. Don't you think that white men should be included in the conversation sometimes instead of being demonized, so that they're not committing suicide by the age 45 because they have no place in society? Don't you think something like that should be fought for? Don't you think that the idea that police might be racially profiling people is a good enough one to consider? We might need to do something about that. We might need to fight for the rights of people that don't have any rights because they were taken away, and then we just gave them rights, and then we decided like, okay, catch up now. I think those things are important. I don't think we should fight over them. I think we should fight for these things. We should fight for a country that respects mental health. We should fight for a country that doesn't racially discriminate. We should fight for a country that is welcoming to anybody that doesn't want to cause us harm. And we should fight against anybody that is intentionally trying to cause us harm. And if those things get in the way, then we need to respect the fact that we have a duty and an obligation to protect our family. So I think these are things that we should be fighting for. We should fight for family. We should fight for values. We should fight for things that matter in society. I don't think we should get up in arms about cameras or rappers or marketing employees. Those are just my thoughts. If you have thoughts, leave them in the comment section below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. This has been 3 C's of me. I hope it has been a productive conversation. I hope to see you next time. Until my next video, be reasonable, people.